Okay, folks, we're back after those hot bars here. And if you're on this stream, you're here to watch who flashed that fight versus Sparta Prime here. The obviously superior match from our rap coming through. I'm Random Minion Caster, your color caster for tonight. And on the analyst desk joining us for this amazing semifinals is Mel Scout. You know him, you love him, AoE God Squad. Why don't you introduce yourself, Mel Scout?
Hi, I'm L Scout. I was jungler for AoE God Squad. We were the 6th place team in the Excellency Heavy League. And last week we lost to Sparta Prime 3-0, but I'm back to be on the analyst desk this week.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you join us because now you have firsthand experience with Sparta Prime here. And you know, you heard it on the desk earlier on the wrap. Who flashed that fight kind of getting favored a little bit here. And you just faced Sparta Prime, so you have a fresher perspective. How do you think this matchup is going to go here? What are your thoughts on both these teams?
Honestly, I just versed both these teams. I flashed that fight week 9 and went straight into versing Sparta Prime. So going against both these teams, I really think I want to give it to Sparta Prime. Their new roster change definitely looks like it's a lot better from what their original roster was. Okay. I want to say that the jungle change wasn't that big from Speedrun Charlie to Muscle, but I think that the new improved jungle and the support changes are definitely going to give Sparta Prime the advantage here.
Okay, that is very surprising because we heard Enos was amazing, but we hadn't heard too much. Well, we hadn't seen too much Sightstone up to this point. So glad to know that is a huge upgrade here, or not huge upgrade, but a bit of an upgrade. So it helps them be a bit more competitive. So we are actually into draft. Bans already coming in. It will be Sparta Prime on the blue side. Who flashed the fight on red side? We're already seeing Shinsao, Viego, meta bans coming through. Samira being taken away by Who flashed that fight. So Who's Success not going to get that. LeBlanc as well. Mel Scott, these bans, you think fairly meta or more targeted?
Okay, the Samira is definitely targeted for boosted success. Obviously, the Viego also is definitely a pick that you do not want to give Showmaker. The Xin Zhao, I think it could go either way, but I'm definitely going to look to see who picks up the Olaf first. Because Baka and Muscle do both play Olaf a lot. From the last 2 series I played against them.
Yeah, for sure. And they actually didn't ban it at all. Ziggs Nocturne coming through again. I think Ziggs, not something I particularly associate with Who Flash Fight, but is a very meta pick coming through. Karma, and Karma did just get nerfed on this patch.
I think the Karma is more for Sparta Prime adapting to the changes of meta. I think the Enchanter Flex is really good to go into all 3 lanes. I definitely can see any 3 members going this Karma, but I do not really think that's going to go for top here.
Yeah. So probably maybe mid or support for Stop Aiming or Sightstone. And oh, I am so glad. I was just gonna say, AoE God Squad, you guys were the ones who pulled out that disgusting triple enchanter support, triple enchanter composition. So I'm glad Who flashed that fight. They've learned from that. We do know Docto does play quite a bit of Lulu, most notably the Lulu Kog'Maw combo in the bot lane. So that does get denied. Olaf, you said, Mouse Scout, it's still available right now for both these teams.
Yeah, I really think that the Olaf pick is definitely highly contested for both of them. Right now, with both enchanters being off the board, yep, there goes the Olaf hover, and there it is.
Really, it's your enemies who know you best. Since you faced both of these teams recently. So now we talked about the fact that Olaf is very contested. I know that J4 is sort of one of the answers to it, but I don't think Muscle necessarily plays that. So what do you think Sparta Prime is going to do to deal with this Olaf here? Are they going to directly try and draft picks that have terrain to counter it, or are you thinking, maybe just play around it, try and do the damage? What's the game plan here?
I think he's going to out damage him with the Kindred pick because Muscle is definitely a Kindred player, and that's what we banned last week. So I'm glad to see this is the response of going stick to comfort here.
Yeah, and because you're a jungler yourself, Mel Scout, talk me through how this specific matchup between Kindred and Olaf goes. Is it a counter, the Kindred, or is it just, muscle power pick?
I think it's just a muscle power pick here. I don't want to say it's necessarily a counter. Olaf does have the complete control over the early game, especially with like an Ezreal Karma maybe bot lane. It's not really the lane that you want to have for Prio. So I could definitely see Olaf taking early objectives, stacking dragons early, and just taking over the game from there.
Okay, for sure. Now, the Lulu often we see paired with Olaf, more in the mid lane than support, but we don't know that for sure right now. And ooh, Dust to Dawn hovering his patented Aatrox. It's his most played top lane champion here, and they're kind of going in for more teamfight prowess here, or more frontline dive bruiser comp style picks coming through.
Yeah, honestly, I wasn't too like thrilled with the Aatrox pick. I definitely think it's an overrated pick for Dustin Dawn. There definitely did better picks that he had because he did lose on the Aatrox, and he did get Aatrox got by Andesu. But I want to say that he could definitely win this lane against Woohyun. I think that this is a very free lane for him to do whatever he wants and just roam across the map and make sure that Kindred doesn't get her marks.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things, interestingly, actually touched on in our raps, the fact that Dustin Dawn actually has very low KP among top laners, and Woohyun's going to be more than happy to roam away. I was not aware that he got top capped by Andesu on the Aatrox, so...
Oh, yeah. We picked the Aatrox into Dustin Dawn. We hit him with his own medicine. Nice.
So I guess he really wants to sort of flex that back. I mean, they're paying some respects to the bans here. They ban out the Malphite, so obviously they feel like that the Aatrox maybe is not completely bindable. We see the Victor coming through, an Echo for Sparta Prime right now. They're targeting Donut Maker's Assassin playmaking champion pool a little bit. And there we go, the Kog'Maw taken out, so we won't see the Kog'Maw Lulu combo. Who Flash of Fight is looking for most likely their AD carry in either support or mid, whereas Sparta Prime right now, we see their jungle, potential bot lane. And right now, I'm a little concerned that Sparta Prime doesn't have any form of engage here.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to be an issue. I want to see a hyper carry pick. I think the Varus ulti here would definitely be a good engage tool if he goes for the attack speed on hit build. I think he could actually do massive damage. I mean, against this comp, you could go either or, but the Lulu pick could go either mid or bot. I want to say that it's going to go mid here and have an engaged support to match with Stingus.
Yeah, I think that's pretty... that's generally what they like to do here. Doctor liking the Leona a lot, which is still up and available. And speaking of which, L9 Sidestone's been playing primarily Leona as well. And speaking of engage for Sparta Prime, Woohyun going on to tank duty here. So even more scaling, but also a lot of engage here.
Yeah, I definitely think that Sparta Prime going for more of a late game and dragging this game out to like 30-40 minutes to just beat Who Flash Fight in these team fights.
Yeah, and their last pickup here will most likely be for the solo lane, for the mid lane. I'd be a bit surprised if they flex the Karma mid. A 380 nerf doesn't sound like too much, but it does mess up her ability to last hit quite a bit here. And Rise coming through. So another late game scaling pick here. Ezreal, Ornn, Rise, none of them feel like champions that give you that early prio. And with a Kindred who needs to farm up those marks, sometimes needs to invade to get those as well. I'm feeling a little bit concerned for them here. Who Flash at Fight still looking for magic damage most likely here to round out their composition. And we're just waiting to see what they'll lock in here for Donut Maker. Is it the Anivia? It got banned throughout most of the regular season here. In fact, I don't think I've seen it on stream, but they do lock it in for Who Flash at Fight.
Yeah, I think that this is a very good pick. I think it goes well against the Rise. Early game, it's definitely a lot better to help Olaf in these early skirmishes. But like Sparta Prime is just going wait until 40 minutes to make sure that Olaf is irrelevant, have healing reduction, could just shred through the front line here.
Yeah, and when I'm looking at Who Flash at Fight too, it's like, who's going to be their late game skill? Or I mean, if you go on hit or attack speed Varus, I guess he can kind of skill up. But Anivia after the rework feels like a much more mid game burst style champion. And sure, you've got wave clear at the end game, but it's not going to match like Rise damage. We already touched on the Olaf, but Aatrox as well. I don't know how I feel about him going to late game against an Ornn who's going to be providing those masterwork items. Now, Scout, I mean, these compositions, where do you think, how do you think the early game is going to play out and then leading into the mid game here?
I definitely could see Who Flash that fight getting ahead here. That Olaf is really going to take over the game and punish this Kindred hard with his team. I could definitely see that Muscle is going to go for early skirmishes or even try a vertical jungle. He does like to get his bot lane ahead by forcing the vertical jungle, so I would like to see that this game to punish Stingus and make sure like he's always under threat for the entire game.
And I know that we mentioned the Lulu mid to pair with the Olaf here, putting her in the bot lane though. Do you think it is actually a viable strategy to try and punish this Varus? I mean, Varus early game feels like he should be able to outpoke the Ezreal, should have a bit more lane control. And if you're Lulu's bot side, shouldn't that be the strong side for the Olaf? Is it actually, like, can Muscle kind of do this here in the bot side? Does he get the right to go vertical jungle?
I mean, I think that Boost of Success does have a pretty good Ezreal. That is a very highly contested pick between the two of them. And after seeing last week his performance on the early game Ezreal, he definitely could snowball really hard and push the game forward for the rest of his team and make these 30-minute games go into 27 minutes and really end it out early. Muscle does help a lot with adding the threat of being ganked bot lane if they force the vertical jungle here, and punishing Stingus from scaling to lethality is definitely going to hurt him a lot.
Okay, so we'll definitely have to keep an eye out early game here. If we vertical jungle, we've talked a lot about Sparta Prime's dominance on the bot side of the map, but for who flashed that fight, if they do go along with that, you know, you've got the Ornn, you've got Ryze as a potential target as well to kind of gank. Who do you think which lane do you think Baka is going to be looking at to try and get the pressure rolling early?
I think he's definitely going to look around mid and bot side this game. I feel like top lane, he could just leave it on an island because Dusty Dawn should just completely take over that lane. I could definitely see early skirmishes in the jungle towards the dragon side. And I would definitely like to see, like, if Sparta Prime doesn't want to give up the objectives early, we could definitely see a death ball around dragon at like 6 minutes.
Okay, so you're expecting to see some really early fights here. And we talked about the fact that who flashed the fight there got the stronger early game composition. Sparta Prime, you know, they've got a lot of skilling here. So I'm very curious, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Sparta Prime navigates these early fights, you know, at that 6-7 minute mark coming through. And the fact that Woohyun as well, not somebody to hesitate to teleport to the bot lane early if he has to. Often loses lane because he's teleporting to help out his bot lane here. Now, Scout, the important question, who do you think wins this game?
I'm going with the Sparta Prime here. As much as two Flash fight had a really good early game comp, I can definitely see Sparta Prime pushing their limits here and getting that Kindred and Ryze ahead to just snowball this game out of control.
Okay, fair enough. Sparta Prime being favored here. We'll have to see if who Flash It Fight is going to be able to quite pull off anything on their own. Again, they're such a strong team, and Baka, we talked him up for a whole bunch of reasons. Personally, I'm also very interested to see how this Anivia works out. We've hardly seen any Anivia. I'm an Anivia player myself, so I'm more than happy to see that here. And with that, we will be throwing to a short intermission while we get loaded into the game here. Do stick around, and we'll be right back on the Rift.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and bees of all ages, welcome back to the Excellency Heavy League semifinal matchup between Sparta Prime and who flashed that fight. My name is Fennec, joined on the desk today, as always, by the lovely RMC. And in game number 1, we have Sparta Prime on the blue side with Woohyun in the top lane, Muscle in the jungle, Stop Aim Me in the mid lane, Boosted Success in AD carry, and L9 Sightstone in support.
And on the red side right now, it's the #1 team from the regular season, who flashed it fight. Dust to Dawn in the top lane, Baka in the jungle, Donut Maker in the mid lane, Stingus and Docto together in the bot lane.
Interestingly enough, Stingus typically prefers the on-hit Varus from what we've seen of him. He's going for the lethality this time around with the Hail of Blades instead of the lethal tempo. So going to be a little bit more lane dominant. These are 3 winning lanes, as we kind of mentioned during the break, for who flashed that fight. We'll see if they're able to snowball those lanes effectively up against Sparta Prime's superior late game.
Yeah, and I do like the fact that he is running that Hail of Blades. He is thinking of that lethality build, because you might as well all in the early game. Even if you did go on hit Varus with that lethal tempo, it's not going to do enough later on into that Ezreal, into that Kindred, into that Ryze. It's not about shredding the tank. If you're focusing Woohyun anyways, you're probably kind of shafted for the most part. So you need that lethality. You need to be able to chunk, and it gives you the ability to at least try and siege against this Karma Ezreal a little bit.
Jungler starting on the bottom side of the map. Looks like a half clear start for the Kindred, not going for the Krugs, and a full clear potentially for Baka. As we take a look top side, level 2 should actually go in favor of Woohyun, as he's actually got more creeps taken at the moment.
Yeah, Woohyun, I mean, they're trading up there. It's kind of risky. Woohyun's missed out, actually, some of that early wave here, so Dust to Dawn getting a little bit of that shove, and it's kind of expected, unfortunately. Ornn does have a surprising amount of damage. Let's not forget, he is still that mage, tank, assassin, fighter, brawler, whatever you want to call him, ram, demon god. But at the same time, it's very reliant on him being able to get the Bellows Breath off, followed by the clap, and Aatrox being so mobile does make that a little bit difficult. So we do expect to see topside constantly shoved in, and I'm more interested to see what Muscle can do and where that first mark spawns, if Muscle can actually get in there and get that early mark.
Well, both junglers are going to be fighting for this top Scuttle Crab, so Muscle, I think, is hoping that it's up here as he pings over towards the top lane. Dustodon very pushed up at the moment. Gets chased off the wave, but no follow-up comes out.
Oh dear, Woohyun accidentally steering charging into his pillar there, which wasn't quite gone yet. Does mean that they don't get the follow-up, will not be able to punish Dustodon. And I like the early moves. I mean, we heard from Mel Scout here that, yeah, Muscle often does like the vertical jungle, likes to play aggressively. I was worried that the Kindred would get kind of bullied, but Muscle is able to hold his own. It's not quite the vertical jungle yet, and it looks like the mark actually spawned on the opposite side of the map, bot side. Muscle should be able to get there, though. I mean, Baka went bottom to top as well.
Yeah, and Baka's late to the Scuttle Crab, in fact, so this should actually go over to Muscle. Unless Baka can out-skirmish. I mean, he does have level 4. Smite goes the way of Muscle, though. And now kiting out of the way. Stop Amy is around. Forces the flash out of Baka. Dustodon is here, though. Gets the knockup to stop Amy. Flash and flash, but the flash misses over the wall, and the instant two-man knockup gets 2 kills. Dustodon picking up 1, and Baka with the other. First blood. Who flashed that fight?
Yo, Finnick, you call yourself an Anivia lover and you didn't call out the wall? The crystal wall came out and just completely pinned Muscle. Muscle couldn't move, was not even able to really turn around and auto attack, and now Sightstone has to be careful as the rest of Who Flashed That Fight is rotating up to deny that mark and that crab away from Muscle.
That is not the start you want if you are Sparta Prime. They're now down about 1,500 gold off those first 2 bloods, and as you mentioned, with that first mark going over to Who Flashed That Fight, it's going to be harder and harder for this Kindred to find marks unless you can find ganks in this early game.
Yeah, and this was sort of the problem that Mouse Scout was having here. The fact that the top side of the map is very, very risky, that Aatrox wins that lane. Now Baka and Dusk being the ones to pick up the kills here. Woohyun no longer gets any sort of agency in lane. If he ever steps past the river here, even with wards, it's so risky for him. And now we might start seeing the trickle-down effect as well. Both junglers want to get their bot lanes ahead. Stingus and Boost. Boost was all pro. Stingus barely didn't make it here. And so Stingus will be wanting to prove himself with this Varus pickup, and Boost with this Ezreal. He's one of the main win cons, the main carry conditions of Sparta Prime.
Well, you expect Lethality Varus to win this lane, but in fact, he's 6 CS down as the waves finally equalize there. So, boost of success, winning the lane on the Ezreal, not something I thought I would say against a Hail of Blades Varus. But at the same time, they don't even need the Pyro to take this dragon. They have Olaf here. Muscle, though, he's blast coned over, and it's enough to keep Boss off of there as the wave priority is in favor of Sparta Prime. They're going to go back in, though. Donut Maker is around. Boost of success also here, level 4, though. Tries to get on a Dokdo with a Mystic Shot, unable to get it. The root lands from the Karma, though. Dokdo able to stay alive, and Stingus gets the kill onto the dragon. Now Baka, he's in trouble. Maybe goes down here. Finally, Boost picks up the kill as a 3-man knockup lands in from Woohyun. That's the TB play we were talking about, and now they can't get the follow-up. Sparta Prime, 1 for 1. They trade jungler for support, but the first dragon goes over to Who Flashed That Fight.
Not gonna lie, Finnick, not as bloody as I thought it'd be, considering that everybody just TP'd in. And we talked about the fact that these teams are not afraid to all just dogpile in, help out their bot lanes here. And Stingus might be losing in terms of CS, but is up in terms of pressure. And more importantly, the one who secured that was Stingus. Muscle.
Oh, stopping me gets a root, though. So that's enough for Muscle to get out of the way. And yeah, on the bot side, it is very important to note that Stingus did get the extra gold for killing that dragon. So it's pretty nice. Looking at the gold, he's got his first lethality at him. He is actually 400 gold down on booster success as he did get a kill in that engagement. But overall, the gold lead is at 1,000 at the 7-minute mark.
Yeah, and the way the game has been shaping up, Finnick, it doesn't look like we're going to see that much attention to the bot lane until Dragon time comes right now. Both Stingus and Boost have to be playing very carefully. Woohyun, on the other hand,
yeah, he got aggressive with the Bellows Breath and instantly got punished by Infernal Chains. There's nothing you can do about that one. Except don't use Bellows Breath aggressively. You have to save it for Infernal Chains when you're up against an Aatrox like this. And unfortunately for Woohyun, he was not able to make it work. Third kill of the game to Dustodon, 100% KP to this Aatrox.
100% KP and almost double the CS right now. We toggle gold here. Dustodon is also almost double gold. So this lane is nigh unbearable. And Muscle too has been struggling. Yes, the CS is only 10 behind, but for junglers, that's absolutely massive. You add on to that a kill as well, and Muscle basically cannot face off against Baka in any of these skirmishes whatsoever. At least not till he hits 6. Then maybe with that Lamb's Respite, they can try and look for something.
Bot lane pushed in, though. They have a jungler around. Boost gets out of the way. As Baka has ported back towards base. He's got the Iron Spike Whip completed. As he makes his way top.
And it looks like they're just going to keep trying to pick on Woohyun. Woohyun, no ward here on the top side, so wouldn't be able to see it coming, but his orange senses are tingling. He went back to pick up an item here, going with the Kindle gem. A little bit more cooldown reduction as well as the extra health. It'll be helpful, but I feel like, again, if you're pushed past the river, that extra, what is that, 200 health is not going to save you.
Indeed. Lamb's Respite ready to go for Muscle in the meantime as we take a look bot side. Sightstone just pushing out the wave. They win the poke war at the moment, or they are winning the poke war despite the fact that this is a lethality Varus and he has the serrated Dirk. It's just the karma adding to the extra poke on top of the Ezreal that's letting this happen. Let's take a look another time. Top side, Woohyun takes the steering charge out of the way.
Not even past the river, Finnick. This is just straight up bullying in the top lane right now. And Baka is hitting it. You can see the ward that Woohyun dropped very, very defensively there. And now it gets cleared out. I'm actually a little surprised that Woohyun is sticking around. I mean, you are an Ornn. You do have to call with the Forge God. But this is still very, very risky when you're against two people who are kind of tanky and can trade off the damage.
Oh. Well, there is the ascent of the Aatrox, and Woohyun's just dead here.
Solo!
Goes into his Tri-Brush? No, it's just Sidon's Tri-Brush there. Dies immediately. It's unfortunate that this is how the top lane is going for Sparta Prime. But as we kind of mentioned, bot side, here comes Dokto. Dokto goes down very low, taken out by the Mystic Shot, a boost of success. Stonemaker is around, though, as Muscle picks up the kill on a Stingus. Drops the Snowstorm down, but can't find the follow-up damage as it's 2-4-0 on the bot line for Sparta Prime. And this is, once again, what we were talking about. Make the 4-man rotations bot side, and you will be rewarded for Sparta Prime. But at the same time, top lane Island currently favoring Who Flashed That Fight, and that split push is not going to be pretty for Sparta Prime.
Arrow dropped into the mid lane as well by Baka here. After that top lane dive, they've got it down to pretty much the last plate here. So mid and top really suffering in terms of their turret and their map pressure here. Stop Amy, though, is up ahead, and Woohyun doing double duty, rotating back and forth, is lucky. Well, not say lucky, they had vision, I suppose, but did not walk into Baka. I think Baka could 1v1 Woohyun right now.
Yeah, and with that kill bot side, or with those kills bot side, they're able to turn this into an early Drake. As Muscle currently sits on 3 marks. 1 more mark on the Kindred. And we are to the magical 4 mark number where she really ups the skirmishing power. Will be an Infernal Soul this game. With the early Dragon Control being split, this is not playing to Who Flashed That Fight's win condition. Instead, they're playing around this top side of the map a little bit more than we expected.
Yeah, for sure here. And we talked about the fact that they needed to run the early game. They got their top ahead. Dustodon, 4-0-1, we've already seen, can absolutely solo up Woohyun anywhere that's not under a turret. And even under a turret, he can do a lot of damage here. But look at the rest of the map here, Finnick. You're losing bot side, you're losing the mid lane. And these are the big carries coming through for Sparta Prime. Even in the jungle here, Baka is now pretty much even with Muscle here. And considering the start of the game, that really shouldn't be the case. Kindred will outscale, and Woohyun doesn't care if he's down. As long as his team's okay, he just needs to be that body, that tank to soak up the damage in front of them. If he lands the Ornn Horn on multiple members, if he gets them the engaged, that's job done. He can phone it in.
The entirety of this gold lead is on the Aatrox. And Aatrox can team fight, but he's more known as a split pusher. You kind of want to set up the 1-4 for him. But if your 4 loses, then your split push is in a little bit of trouble. We'll see how Dustodon plays that as we get in towards the mid-game. As turrets at the moment, turret plating in favor of Who Flashed That Fight. Using that Rift Herald to their advantage, as well as some of that pressure top and bottom side.
Yeah, that 1,500 gold advantage. It's not quite showing in the items too much yet. Muscle does have their first mythic here, where Baka still hasn't quite completed. Dust to Dawn, obviously, with the Gore Drinker, but that's less the turret plating and more just Dust to Dawn's lane dominance. And bot side, Sting is rushing the Serpent's Fang, actually, in this bot lane. I do like that adaptation. There is a karma here, and if you can cut through a lot of that shielding early, it's not just about winning your lane, it's not just about that lethality and attack damage, it's also the fact that in the later team fights, that shield will not be as effective. Karma, even if you shield 5 members, it's going to only be 50% of the shield it should have been.
Indeed, but at the same time, heal cut's already coming out against this Aatrox. So we have the early Bramble Vest from the Ornn. I expect an early XX coming out from Muscle now that he's got the Kraken Slayer completed, but Muscle's in trouble mid lane. Gets deleted. A great stun from Donut Maker to make that happen. The Stop Aim Me gets hit by an axe. Baka has expended the ultimate. Call the Forge God going down. Stop Aim Me flashes out of the way, and the Forge God whiffs.
Field goal through the uprights there. Really well positioned from Who Flash and Fight to avoid it. And they still have to be careful. This is diveable territory for an Aatrox here. At least for the Rise, Woohyun should be fine. He is the Ornn. He is tanky. And I want to point out that Woohyun's been sitting on this Ignite since like minute 6 or 7. Has not had a chance to clear it. I think at this point, you just kind of burn it just to get a different summoner. Because that Ignite really isn't going to help you in those big team fights, I don't think. And you're not going to win the 1v1 against the Aatrox.
Baka's completed Stride Breaker in the meantime. Not an item I think I've seen a lot of on Olaf's, but then again, I haven't played against many Olaf's recently. What are your thoughts on this?
I like it on Olaf if he's running Ghost, but I don't like it so much on the Flash. I mean, yes, you can Flash and Stride Breaker, especially into a team that is somewhat mobile here, like the Kindred, like the Ezreal. But I suppose Baka's job isn't to do that necessarily. It's more to slow down that Rise, because you can tag that Rise, and if you can reach a target, that's when Stride Breaker's fairly strong here. So, not to me the optimal choice here. I'd be curious to see Melscout's opinion after this, after the game. We'll have to get the opinion then, and we'll have to see in this game specifically if Baka can make it work. So
something I mentioned or was thinking about mentioning but didn't actually was the Anathema's chains potentially from Woohyun, and he got the Anathema's chains. This is just for the Aatrox in the side lane, so he's able to take less damage. I mean, it's a good adaptation. I like seeing it. Still needs to get a mythic. We'll see which of the Sunfire mythics he goes for as the Ezreal completes the Divine Sunder on the bot side.
Well, that's now going to be super, super rough for Sting this year. Like we said, that Serpent's Fang, I mean, it'll help a little bit into the Karma, but you're taking it more for the team fights right now. And in that 1v1, it's not going to feel quite as good as, you know, a Duskblade or a Prowler's Claw into that Sunderer here. So I think Stingus' call at this point is you take what you can get, and you just kind of leave him to 1v2.
Anivia doing Anivia things, gets the wall, but unable to find the connection with the Everfrost as the mid tower goes down. And this is what you get with Anivia, just insane turret pressure once she gets onto her Mythic. And with that, 2 turrets have fallen. First 2 of the game for Who Flashed That Fight. Not pre-14, so a little bit slower than perhaps we expected with this comp, but they're still in the lead at the moment, almost 3K at the 16-minute mark.
And honestly, this is what Who Flashed That Fight needs to do here. Before this, like I said, a 1K, 1.5K is not that significant at that 12-minute mark here. They're starting to push their leads, and this is precisely what the team needs to do before they start to fall off. Good news for them is it's an Infernal Soul here, so they can stack 3 of them, get that 12% additional attack damage potentially, and ability damage as well, and that extra pop, and that will help them remain competitive if they can stay on top of these dragons.
Rift Herald, though, going to be taken in response by Sparta Prime. Should be enough to break their first tower of the game and perhaps even out the gold lead a little bit. But at the same time, we're into the mid-game, and mid-game team comp Who Flashed That Fight should start looking for more skirmishes here. In fact, Dust to Dawn getting on a Muscle. We see the Call the Forge God get used as directed camera goes bot side, still able to get the knockdown onto Dust to Dawn. He goes ahead, pops the ultimate, gets a huge heal off as Lulu comes in as well with the Wild Growth Polymorph on the stop. Ain't me. He's in trouble, stuck in the pit with the Rift Herald and Dokdo. Tries to get onto Dokdo, but unfortunately taken out by Stingus as Woohyun has to flash over the wall to stay alive. Egg popped bottom side, boosting success. Cannot get the kill onto the individual with the follow-up as Donut Maker flashes, misses the Everfrost. It's 1 for 0, and the Herald goes over to Who Flashed That Fight.
Everything went so wrong for Sparta Prime in that top side play there. You cannot be looking to target that Aatrox like that without sufficient healing cut. And unfortunately, the Gore Drinker plus the healing that Aatrox just has is just way too nasty. We have to remember that when Gore Drinker got nerfed, Aatrox was one of the champions, was still running it because of the way the ultimate interacts with it, increases the self-healing. It's just so strong here, and they can't take him down. I want to add to that Woohyun has Anathema's Chain, so he doesn't have any damage, really. That's not an item you pick to help you do more. It's to help you survive longer. Yes, it wasn't Dust to Dawn, but I would actually have liked to see that onto Donut Maker instead, and then you just build straight armor through, try and keep that out. Or if you think, you know, someone else is a threat, then you put it on that someone else. But Dust to Dawn, just, it didn't do anything in the fight.
Indeed, but at the same time, Woohyun not dying as much as he did in the early game, still sitting on 2 deaths. Trying to match this Aatrox, but he does lose in the lane pressure. Bot lane, though, this is where Sparta Prime has their one shining beacon. Boost to success, 188 CS, 2 Singus's 140, has 1.4k gold lead over the enemy 80 carry, and he's building in towards his second item, going to be, of course, the Manamune. Yeah.
And that's why I think what we're seeing Sparta Prime wait for here is that power spike before they really start to bring that Ezreal elsewhere.
Rise coming up.
Realmore.
Oh, Cold Forge got swing and a miss. World Ender has been popped though. Muscles here, caught in the Infernal Chains, gonna get dunked back. And Dustodon gets out.
Yeah, Muscle just ran out of that. I mean, you can't win that 1v1. Stop Amy and Woohyun weren't gonna be in the right position to come in there. So I think a good escape. Oh, Sidestone, no.
Oh, no. That's unfortunate. That's enough for the Dragon priority, but they decide to move towards top side. Muscle has to dash over the wall. Baron is spawning in 23 seconds, so they should be able to ward up this jungle and potentially play for an early Baron here for Who Flashed that fight.
And Who Flashed the fight cannot take Baron without getting kills. You have a Lethality Varus who went Serpent's Fang, so you're not going to have that additional damage that you normally see, and Lethality Varus is already really slow at taking Baron. You've got an Anivia who went Everfrost, which is, in my opinion, the right item against the Rise here, not Leandri, so you don't have the percent health burn. And Dustodon and Baka aren't exactly Baron shredders, so they might just want to ward it to make sure they have vision so that Kindred and Ezreal can't burst it down. But their focus should be continuing to, again, stack those dragons here, look for picks, make things happen. And I love the fact that they've accelerated the pace of the game. I want to see them focus the bot lane now, because that's your last standing outer turret. That's free gold for you. Herald dropped upside. I guess they're just going to try and walk it in with Dust to Dawn here, who does have TP and can rejoin the rest of the team at any given time.
Dragon spawning in 34 seconds. Once again, Baron priority has gone over to Who Flashed that fight. And that means that they're free to go for this Dragon if they decide to. Boosted Success is playing here, has the completed Muramana now. As they continue to play towards this mid lane. Muscle, though, does not have an Executioner's Calling, and I think that's a little bit of a mistake because this is a 5v5. Dustodon has made his way in. And Sparta Prime, they're trying to kite out of the way. 3 people in the bush here. Online Sight Stone, flipping out a Q, not a mantra Q though. As the stun lands on a Woohyun. Ult wall comes out, not able to get the Everfrost as they get a huge kill onto Sightstone. Muscle able to barely stay alive using the Lamb's Spike, trying to get on a Dokdo, but it gets taken down as Woohyun is the next one to fall. Sabe Mi tries to cut out of the way alongside Boosted Success, but it's a clean ace and a quadra kill for Baka, Who Flashed that fight. Going to take this Dragon with no remorse.
This is huge, Finnick. It's not just the Dragon that they're taking. This is also that Baron that we were talking about. They needed to get some kills. They got literally all the kills. A clean ace, didn't lose a single member. Meanwhile, Shelly was pushing top. Shelly got inner turret all on her own. Heavily damaged the inhibitor turret as well. So with that Baron, they're almost guaranteed an inhibitor. They went from something like a 3-4k lead to now a 7,000 lead here before Baron. Once they pick this up, 10k is just within spitting distance here. And sure, Sparta Prime's got great scaling. I don't think they're going to get a chance to get that far in.
And they finally have the Duskblade on Stingus as well. This is an online Lethality Varus. And it just comes down to, can they end the game, right? It is their tempo, their prerogative. If they can end the game before Sparta Prime comes online, they win. If they don't end the game before then Sparta Prime has a chance. But the ball is firmly in Who Flashed That Fight's court. We'll see how well they can do that.
Yeah, and they've got maybe about 5-10 minutes here. Boost Success has completed second item. The Mirror Mana is fully upgraded online. Stop Amy looking for that Archangel staff to serve some brace here, but oh, the chunk coming through from Stingus. And if that Chain of Corruptions had landed, Stingus was dead once again.
Muscle, though, getting chunked out by Stingus as well as these Baron buffs. Thokdo not taking much from the Mystic Shot, and this is a solo kill for Donut Maker. Stop Aim Me. Can't really do too much about that.
Yeah, Stop Amy was winning initially, but I mean, when your team starts to fall around you there, 2 kills, 5 assists, it's just so hard to play through. And again, they're not sieging top. They've got Baron buff right now, and they're pushing in the side waves. That bot lane outer turret finally going to go down, and they could just brute force this mid lane as well. Dust to Dawn is tanky enough. Baka is tanky enough right now, and an Ezreal does damage, but I don't know if you do enough damage to hold this off.
Wuhan, 2-man knockup, looks for the Call of Forge God, but he's knocked himself, and he goes on to the Olaf, who's already ulted up. Sightstone and Wuhan are down, as Boosted Success has to flash to get away from the Everfrost of the Anivia, and Dust to Dawn flashes in to get the kill out of the enemy jungler. Now Boosted Success gets taken down, and it's 4-4-0. Stop Aim Me can only watch as this base gets decimated. This might just be the end game push for Who Flashed.
Yeah, I mean, it's 15 seconds before Sidestone's up, and that's the karma. Stop Amy, you're too squishy at this point. Oh, the Zonias as well.
Nope. Clean. Just get out of here. Donut Maker might actually pop an egg, but yeah, that's not nearly enough. I mean, absolute domination from Who Flashed That Fight. That was one of the cleaner games of League of Legends I've ever had the pleasure of casting. And with that, it's a 24-30 win for Who Flashed That Fight.
And a lot of this here, Finnick, came off that top side of the map for Who Flashed That Fight. It wasn't Donut Maker with a mid diff. It wasn't Stingus and Docto running over the bot lane. If anything, they were losing their lanes here. And keep in mind that Anivia is supposed to be a counter to Rise. They picked it as a counter to Rise. Did not work out for them whatsoever. Top side, top side, top side. And Muscle didn't necessarily have the worst of starts, as a Kindred found the 3 marks fairly quickly, the 4 marks fairly quickly. But Woohyun cannot afford to go down that low against Dust to Dawn. And the Aatrox was picked first rotation, so they knew what they were picking the Ornn into. If you can't deal with the Aatrox, then you've got to ban it.
Yeah, exactly. Boosted Success did a lot on that Ezreal, but it just was not enough to counteract this Aatrox pickup from Dusk to Dawn. And looking forward to game 2. Obviously, Aatrox gets banned away. What other draft differences are we going to see from these teams?
I mean, besides that right now, I think that was the main big deal coming through for the side of Sparta Prime. Maybe you change something up for Muscle here. Muscle is known to be a strong ganking jungler, and Kindred, that isn't exactly a strong ganking jungler here. Yes, it scales up great, but if you've got Stop Amy and Boost Success who can already do that, I think I want to see an early game jungler come through. Maybe you pick the Olaf for yourself, deny it away from the other side.
Well, before we get into game 2, we're going to send it to the analyst desk with RMC and Mel Scout. Take it away.
Okay, Mel Scout, glad to have you back here. I mean, you heard my thoughts on that game. Now I'm curious to hear yours. What happened there? Break it down for me.
I think it was Sparta Prime definitely getting draft capped there. I think they could definitely have played their comp a lot better than they did. You had a lot of early skirmishes from Muscle in the early game, which was mostly unnecessary. Like, you have an Ezreal that is ahead and you're fighting towards the top side. You should be fighting towards the Ezreal that has a 50 CS diff at 15 minutes. If you play towards the damage, I think they could get a lot further in these early game fights.
You're saying just abandon Woohyun, he's done, he's dusted, let the turret fall.
I think it was definitely well played by Dust to Dawn in the top side. He definitely put his Aatrox pick into good use this game. I want to see that, Woohyun is definitely just the weak side here. You just got to ignore top lane and just stay towards the bot. You saw Boosted Success. He had a pretty good game despite his team getting aced almost every single time. So I want to see Boosted Success getting a lot of resources put into him, and maybe Sparta Prime could come out with a win next game.
Okay, and before we start talking about the next game and maybe what they can tweak or change about that, Finnick asked me a question in game about the Olaf Stridebreaker. Now Stridebreaker has been nerfed a couple of times now. And I don't think it's currently sort of the item to go to for Olaf. Is it? Or is it the right item in that situation there?
I think it works either way if you go Gore Drinker or Stride Breaker. Not necessarily the worst item in the game. It's still good on Olaf because it gives you that slow. And it definitely helps for those chasing potentials, especially with him bringing approach velocity. So any slows definitely helps Olaf catch up to the targets. I think that the Gore Drinker wouldn't really make a difference this game. He was pretty tanky, and he had the peel from this Lulu support. So I think he was perfectly fine with going wherever he wanted.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And this definitely, I agree, that wouldn't have made a difference that game. That's a whole other issue. And speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about the pick bans and potential changes we see here. So, do you think the Aatrox was the problem, or do you think it's that maybe they should pick something else for Woo Hyun here? If you're weak side, I mean, Ornn has been sort of the premier weak side tank for most of season 11, most of season 10 here. So, do you think that was okay, and it was the Aatrox that the issue, or other way around?
I think that Aatrox is slightly an issue. I think Woo Hyun could definitely play the lane a lot better in that matchup. As we saw him use his W a lot earlier against the Aatrox just to trade, and then he got caught up because he didn't have it anymore for the Aatrox. So I definitely think he could play the lane a lot better, and he could just weak side a lot harder than he did.